Moving on to our next speaker is Mr. Pankaj Fasi. And as he's coming to the podium, just a check, is Mr. David Doherty here? He's one of the speakers. We have not seen him yet. Okay, we will check.
I get some spare time?
You might.
No, we already started late, so we'll try and catch up on our session. But thanks, Dhananjay, for a very enlightening session. The sessions, as you rightly said, after lunch are a little bit challenged. Good afternoon, everybody. It's an honor to be part of the TSI, 7th International Telemedicine Congress 2011. My views on telemedicine just got released in the publication, which was unveiled this morning by the Health IT News Direct. But the topic today is more on convergence on mHealth, and I want to focus on the mHealth piece, which is really a subset of a broader telemedicine, or you can say a telehealth topic. I have structured the presentation in 3 very simple parts. I'm not a doctor. Background-wise, I'm an IT person, and starting to see how technology can enable, specifically for the Indian context, the mobile health services. So the 3 parts are talk a little bit about the convergence, what it means, what it brings in mind when we talk about convergence. Why is mHealth really an enabler to bridge the gap? And then I want to take a couple of use cases that Health4, which is the company I represent, are making strides in to deliver some of the mHealth solutions. So if you see in the last decade or so, we have seen convergence of voice, video, and data. We have seen that the pagers, the personal computing devices, whether it was laptops and PCs, the PDAs, the cellular telephones have all kind of converged into a single convergent device, which is either a smartphone or a tablet PC. We have also seen that the convergence brings along with it several advantages. What it does, it provides you the opportunity to operate more efficiently, more effectively, and actually brings some kind of a systemic approach to bringing these systems together. It also, even though technology kind of bogs down some of us because we have to do a technology refresh more often as the devices change, but it does present a huge ROI when you really implement it. There is rapid market expansion in the new markets just because of this convergence. Taking in perspective of how convergence is actually impacting our lives. We all remember the days, actually quite a few of us still do, when TV, the landlines and the mobile phones used to operate on separate networks. There was a broadcasting network for televisions, there was a separate fixed line networks for the fixed line services, and the mobile networks. They have all starting to come together in a unified digital networks, which can really carry voice, video, data seamlessly and delivering it to your point of presence. Not only does it give you the ability to look at things like, see what it's also doing is it is giving you a sense of collaboration. So while there is convergence, the effect of that is you are starting to collaborate. Today, I think all of us collaborate when it comes to sharing and kind of putting together pictures, music, videos. The way we socially network today is all because of the convergence of this ecosystem and the ability to do that. Let us look at convergence from a technology and a platform perspective. Over here again, there has been humongous convergence over the last few years. While each of the players, as you see listed out here, compete for market share, compete for dominance. But what they are all moving towards is interoperability. Today, if you look at whether they are the enterprise applications or the enterprise development platforms, various operating systems, whether they are on mainframes, desktops, laptops, no matter what, or web development tools and platforms, or mobile OSs. While they are doing their own way and setting standards and merging and unifying, what they have provided us is they can coexist. So the things that I'm trying to highlight over here are a few words. There is collaboration because of convergence. There is interoperability that is happening because of convergence, which are key to the fundamental building block, which we will see in the mHealth section. Now let's look at mHealth. I mean, we just heard a point solution on the SMS and how SMSs can be used in terms of dissipating information to the end users who have a simple Nokia phone or whatever mobile device. But in order to have a bigger game plan for mHealth, you need the systems, the ecosystem behind the healthcare also to be collaborating. Now, we know the various stakeholders in healthcare. We have the hospitals, we have the clinics, we have the pharmacies, we have diagnostic centers, nursing homes, drugstores, blood banks, or you name it, and there are almost 16 to 20 stakeholders who all come together. Now, we are talking about EMR and how you can share an EMR, but the essence is all these systems need to collaborate, and that is where standardization is starting to happen. This probably has nothing to do with mHealth yet, but you see standards like IHE, HIPAA, HL7, all what they are enabling is a seamless system which is coming together in a healthcare ecosystem. So, and then the paradigm shift is now to take this existing collaborative healthcare integrated system and take it to the mobile, where it is mobile on a device, mobile to where the care is needed, take it away from the brick and mortar kind of institution to where the patient is there. Then take it from a real time when the disease or the symptom actually needs care to a time when you can do preventive health care. So those are the changes which we have to start thinking about if we have to truly utilize the potential of mHealth. So the first section really to summarize that is all about interoperability. It's about collaboration, and it's about standardization. If you remember these three words, that is what convergence is really driving towards. Moving to the next part, why mHealth? Again, there is a lot of data one can share on the demographics of what the healthcare divide is in India and some of the developing countries, but I'll just state three facts. Today, the GDP spend in India on healthcare is about 6%. 1 to 1.5% comes from the public sector, remaining all is private funded. About 30% of the private healthcare providers actually service 80% of the population when it comes to healthcare delivery. And out of those, 80% of the patients or caretakers are spending money out of their pocket. If you just look at these three data points, it gives you the vastness of the healthcare divide that exists in India. We also know that there is added burden because of the usual stuff. There is aging population. There is rising chronic diseases. The way we work today, there are a lot of diseases which are all going up. There's resource constraint from an infrastructure perspective, manpower perspective. All those things are there. While we can fix them, they will take a lot of time. And hence, the solution really lies in trying to see how we can expedite that by using mobile and mobile health as a platform. One interesting statistics that I shared here is from McKinsey, which says that 24 million families today who can afford good health care, meaning they earn at least $2,000 a month, and we assume they can afford good health care, is going to multiply by 4 times in the next 8 or 9 years. There will be 93 million families who can afford that health care. Now, imagine the burden it's going to put on the entire healthcare infrastructure to deliver these kind of services. So we cannot build enough beds, you cannot train enough doctors, you cannot have enough nurses. You have to reach out to either prevent a disease or prevent a sickness from happening, or you go to the point of care, either to their home or reach out to the people in the rural areas. The interesting thing is the mobility is providing us that. All the stats, again, a lot of stats over here, but says that India is number 2 when it comes to mobile penetration, or the number of users who use mobile, number 2 in the world. We are number 4 in terms of internet usage. So our mobile density is on the rise. So almost everybody who is likely to be sick or need some care, information, assistance, symptomatic treatment has access to some device which you can reach out to, at least in the family. And that is where I think the gap can be bridged by bringing mHealth services to those people. Having covered convergence and why mHealth, let me talk about a couple of use cases in a larger framework and how Health4 is trying to bridge this gap. I believe we are in a kind of a unique situation. And I say unique because Health4 is a healthcare IT division of Religare Technologies. Religare Technologies shares the same promoter group as the Fortis Hospitals, as the SRL, as the Religare Wellness. So if you see in the stakeholders of, and it also has health insurance, Religare Health Insurance. If you look at the stakeholders' perspective, you pretty much cover everybody who has to come together to be able to build, demonstrate, go beyond the pilot stage some of these services. And we have leveraged that ecosystem along with some of our trusted partners to enable mHealth solutions, test it out, and deploy them successfully in India. The basic fundamental understanding that I believe is that any health problem is 80% communication. And only 20% is really what is prognosis, diagnosis, or actual treatment. If you really look back at any treatment that any one of you or your families have had, mostly what does the doctor do? He really is communicating with you. And then he's really treating you for those 20%, or roughly around those percentages. So since communication is so important, and you can do that voice communication over several things, the framework that we have devised going forward for the mHealth strategy is as follows. On the top is teletriage. Teletriage is really providing care over voice to nursing care. Then you come to teleclinics, where you're taking the OP services over to the location which is away from the in the center. You get into telemedicine, which is more unique in terms of teleradiology, telepathology, and things like that, where more of diagnosis and more of diagnostics come into play, where more of specialist care starts to surface. You go into chronic disease management, which is a huge subject by itself, and we had an entire session on that this morning. And then at the base level is how do you get data to be able to have a feedback mechanism for disease surveillance and disaster management as a nation, as a world, and things like that. I'm going to only cover two, teletriage and chronic disease management, but we have frameworks, solutions, and pilots, as well as post-pilot implementations for almost all these 5 areas. Talking about teletriage, it is the management of patient health, concerns, and symptoms via voice interaction. Very simple. And it's also sometimes referred to as telephone advice counseling. We have launched this service almost 9 months back. Today, it runs across 70 million people in India, accessible to them through a unique service. And the scope of the service is pretty wide. If you really, it is based on obviously protocol and algorithm-based systems. But fundamentally, if you have to succeed in the service, you have to have operational excellence. You have to have the rigor to almost do it like an ITES service with a medical professional touch or a human touch behind it. And that's why it becomes not so easy to deliver such a service. But the scope-wise, it can take care of emergency referrals, it can take care of regular routine cases, almost everything that you would go and see a general physician, you can do it over the phone. One interesting fact, while the rest of it can be read, is one of our trusted partners, Medibank, who have been running this service in the entire Australia for almost 12 years, collected data for 10 years. And on the right-hand side, what you see is the perception versus what is the reality. When a caller calls a teletriage helpline, the intended purpose is he's calling less than 0.5% for an ambulance. Essentially, he's calling for an ED visit, an emergency department visit, or he's trying to do a doctor appointment or a non-GP kind of a setup. But when you actually go through those triage calls, what you find is ambulance is actually 2%. So people do not realize they are in a situation where they actually need an ambulance. ED visit is only 10%. A lot of people panic and say, I want to go into emergency. There is no need for an emergency. They can be treated with either home remedy or just by normal over-the-counter drugs. Urgent GP visits are 17%, and doctor appointments are much more than what people think they are intending to call for. And self-care, that's a revelation, is 37%. So just imagine the burden that you're reducing on the system if 35% gap can be plugged by not having that person travel to across a village, to a district, or to a hospital, spending time, money, effort, and more importantly, the resources of the doctor who will see him at least for 5–10 minutes. All that is saved because he can manage by self-care. The other part is the CDM, which is the chronic disease management. Here, CDM is nothing but a system of coordinated healthcare where we believe interventions and communications are across population with conditions in which patient self-care efforts are significant. And they start upfront in the cycle so that you can prevent non-communicable diseases from really becoming tertiary care or secondary care and things like that. Here, it is all about early intervention, and it's about educating, about remote monitoring of the patient, and we have systems, devices, ecosystems built which can do all that. And it's also about real-time symptomatic monitoring of patients. So these were really two examples. We can go into more details of the other examples. Happy to spend more time on some of the other things. But in conclusion, just want to again re-emphasize the fact that convergence is almost synonymous with collaboration, with standardization, and interoperability. Once we have that, in silos, we need to get it together, and that would play an important role in mHealth to be successful. No matter how many pilots you do, it doesn't really matter. Point solutions have to start coming together. And mHealth, therefore, has a great future, provided we understand these challenges and are able to overcome them. A very small diagrammatic representation of what we have put together as a case management. So there is a patient who is being monitored based on his disease, genetic or whatever it is, and that is then fed into a smartphone client through our partner Airtel, goes into the system, is stored somewhere, is accessible through an alert system to the doctors, whether they are Fortis or whatever the service provider is. Those doctors can then, based on the alerts, make sure that they are calling up a health advice service, reaching out to the patient, and then servicing him. Again, at a very high level, you can then attach to this ecosystem all the diagnosis you need, whether it's teleradiology, telepathology, all those things can be built around it. But unless you manage through an mHealth the entire life cycle, all those solutions will still be point solutions, and they will not be able to deliver the kind of ROI that we are struggling today presently. Thank you so much. You want to take questions now, or any questions? More than happy to.
Electronic medical record sheet is much larger, so to view it is a little difficult.
Yeah, so EMR is really a very broad term, right? You don't have to really see everything. I'll give you an example. You go for a blood test, right? And you go for a blood test which gives you 16 parameters. All you need to know is the parameter which is outside the range, right? Because it doesn't really matter if your hemoglobin is in the range, your INR is in the range. You only need to know what is the aberration there. So that could be one way where a phone can be used. But otherwise, you use a cloud. You can use a tablet. You can use an iPad to access. Who accesses an EMR? Today, I don't think the patients probably need to see an PHR, which is more generic. This is the clinician fraternity which needs to look at an EMR. And they, we assume, would have access to something more than a small screen handset. And if they do use a handset, they probably only want to look at the alert and the patient ID, the bed number, and the hospital that they want to reach out to.
What about video conferencing, sir, which is part of telemedicine?
Yeah, that is very much part of the teleclinic solution. So the entire thing about video, voice is part of the teleclinic solution. I did not talk about it, but that is where it is. Thank you so much.